You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Let's discover hardcover month, but it's this enough so you can know what's up in the hood.
Emmett Till was a young black boy from Chicago who went to visit relatives in Mississippi. While he was there, he went to the store to buy some candy. On his way out, he saw and spoke to a young white woman. For this, his life was taken. This is one of the many incidents that sparked the civil rights movement. Why did it have to take the death of young Emmett Till to bring blacks together?
Here we go.
In the past, everyone struggled together because they had a special reason and purpose. We became a movement, a force for change. But civil rights would not be given to us. We had to fight for it. Our goal was justice for all people of all ages. For the children, this meant equality in education. Schools would be desegregated. Black and white students would share the same classroom and have the same educational resources and opportunities. After all the struggle, the pain, and lives that were taken to give us what we call equal education, is it really equal?
We're still not equal because some schools are still better than others, and especially the ones that are in the black Inglewood neighborhoods in which that we're in now. So a lot of the schools, I mean, even though we are desegregated, we still have the same problems that were there before.
The school system is not doing anything for them. It's not providing them with the basis that they need, which is knowledge of themselves. And you had said non-segregated schools, but really that's not the goal. Non-segregated schools, well, we need schools that are putting something in their head. Just because they're sitting next to white people doesn't make them any more intelligent.
When we're in school, we learn, like I said, the Constitution, and we learn that the King was a great man, and George Washington Carver had the peanut. We learn all this other extraneous stuff. We don't learn everyday stuff. We don't learn about the movement. We don't learn about the Harlem Renaissance in detail, so we have no passion for it. And
how do you feel about the education in the community?
In terms of the high schools in our community?
Yeah.
Overall, I think there are a number of people who try very hard. I think there are a lot of problems that are not being addressed in terms of security in the schools that I think is not really adequately done. Different types of programming, and adequate funding to make the physical plants even that the students go to school in a little more attractive, a little more conducive to learning.
The school system is set up poorly. Ever since white people left the public school system back in the 60s upon fleeing to the suburbs, there's been no money for public schools after we never had these crises before. Now that the schools are 90% black, we have a lack of funding. Kids are getting frustrated. I think another problem is that young people are teaching as opposed to doing something else. The teachers are not there, they're not committed. They don't have the desire to teach and mold young people. They're saying, oh, I can't be an astronaut, so I'll teach science. Instead of people saying, I want to be a teacher, I want to make a difference. So I think between the lack of funds and the lack of teacher motivation, the lack of structure in the home, parents aren't seeing after their kids like they used to, lack of responsibility, I think that there are all kind of factors.
How do you feel about kids dropping out of school knowing the struggle our ancestors went through to get us in non-segregated schools?
Well, I think the real problem that I have with it is that the society has changed so that without an education, you're not able to really compete. There's not a lot of non-skilled jobs out there, and so you're effectively being shut out of the society. What, in terms of segregation or desegregation, I think that it's a crime. It's criminal virtually, given the struggles that have come before us, to give those things up so easily and so easily walk into this kind of trap.
How do you think we can stop the dropout rate?
I think by changing the curriculum and changing the teaching methods so that they're more culture specific, so that they relate directly to the group that's being taught, rather than some sort of general thing that people cannot relate to.
Why do you think people drop out of school?
A number of reasons. I think some drop out because they've lost confidence in the system. Some drop out because of the enormous problems they may have in the family and in the community. Some drop out for fear. because our schools have become too dangerous. And so,
In the past, African Americans were being killed by the hand of white racists. There were many who suffered the fate of Emmett Till. Today, drug and gang violence are destroying our young people. It's every man for himself. Why are we killing our own black brothers and sisters?
Well, back in the 60s, our brothers and sisters were hanged. How could you gangbang? I never ever ran from the Ku Klux Klan, and I shouldn't have to run from a black man, 'cause that's self-destruction. Yeah, it was self-destruction. Self-destruction. Yeah, it was self-destruction. Self-destruction. Yeah, it was self-destruction.
How do you feel about blacks killing blacks?
I think it's really sad because back in the past, Ku Klux Klan men were killing blacks. Now it's blacks killing blacks, and I think it's really sad. They're just helping out the Ku Klux Klan, just what the Ku Klux Klan men want them to do. I think it's really sad.
Why do you think they're killing each other?
I think they're killing each other because they're frustrated, that they think there's no hope for them out here. So it's hard for them to get jobs and everything like that. They just think that that's the best way for them to let out their frustrations, to be violent.
I think it's more black on black crime because we living in this neighborhood together, so the black people feel that they don't feel that they ignorant to just go call war on their own brothers and sisters instead of the man that's really bringing us the trouble. Say for instance the drugs. The white man really bringing it in, so they really doing this to us. They bringing it in to us and making us fight each other over something that they doing. They getting paid for it while we dying. So I think it's more black on black crime, but I think it's the white people's fault.
Why do you think people become violent?
Greed. I think greed is do it because they want to have what the next man had. This man might have on some Nikes. He say, well, yeah, I like them. So he figured that he want to take his Nikes, and that's just a whole conflict right there. And so I think it's just greed.
Why is there so much gang violence?
I feel there's a lot of gang violence because there's a lot of frustration, but I think we need to put gang violence to the side because I feel that the media says a lot of that each night. I think we need to look at the real subject, which is a lot of jobs are being taken away from the blacks. There's a lack of public aid that's been cut. I think that blacks are really frustrated and fed up with what's going on in today's society. I feel that it's time for us to stop blaming one another and come together and fight the system that's holding us back.
When you left out of society, you become part of the problem instead of part of the solution. So, ain't no jobs nothing out here for them, so they part of the problem. So they have to go out here and do what they got to do to get their money on, There it is.
What do you think we can do to stop the violence in this community?
For once, personally, I don't think it's going to stop, but I think that us black people, we need to get together as one like they did back in the days, because if we don't, ain't nowhere we gonna go. We gonna keep doing what we doing, and ain't nothing gonna stop it.
We need to become more close-knit, and that's part of the problems with the black community, is that now we've grown apart from one another. We used to care about one another, we used to be concerned, and that love and kindness no longer exists, or it's not showing to be existent right now.
This tape was made as a cry for help. A cry for all African Americans to love and stop killing one another. Our ancestors fought hard for us to have equal rights. Let's not take that for granted. It took the death of young Emmett Till to bring blacks together in the past. We don't need any more death. It's time to unite. It's time to make that change.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Let's discover hard cover months, but it's this enough so you can know what's up in the hood.
Oh Lord, where are we going? This is a time where our people are suffering and suffering over. It's a time where freedom is paid with not just my life, but the lives of my children. Lord, as my children flee to the north, I pray peace be with them. I know I'm too old to follow, but if my children can walk the streets as free men and women, then I will find joy. Lord, oh Lord, the white man is trying to say we are crazy to dream of a free South. To dream of a South where black men can walk the streets with pride. A South where a black man can own land. Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, where are we going? They say war is coming. They say war is coming soon. Lord, oh Lord.
Come, how precious did the grace appear the hour.
The king spoke for peace and equal rights for all. The king marched with nonviolence to break the racial laws. The king stood up for the rights that many take for granted today. The king was and is a man whom we appreciate in a special way. The king suffered during his life, which was a troubled time. The king preached the word of God and dared ask for a dime. The king was and always will be a role model for trying men. The king was indeed the one who helped integration to begin. The king was known for speaking fond of equality. The king often spoke of God's children being free. The king sought after rights, like sitting freely on the bus. The king helped ease segregation's commotion and constant fuss. The king was about to preach to all after seeing the promised land. The king soon after died, leaving nations in grief, joining hands. The king is still being missed by people everywhere. The king was a man, overflowed with a majestic peace, undying love and care.
We're here with Tom Kento, and he's 20 years old. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Do you support the war?
In a sense, I do. I'm not all for it, but then I'm not all against it. I can't comment that.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Let's discover hardcover.
My reading and science teacher, Miss Smiley, is going on a trip called the MVP, otherwise known as the Middle Passage Voyage, to retrace the route our ancestors took from Africa to America. Our ancestors made it to Africa, and that's why we're here.
How were you selected to go on a trip?
Well, about a year ago, I found out that Captain Pinkney was going on a trip to Africa, and that he was going to be creating curriculum to use on the internet and in classrooms, and he was going to be taking about 20 teachers with him, and I knew that I wanted to be one of those 20 teachers, so I applied, and he asked me if I would go on the voyage with him.
Why are you going during the tour?
Well, we're going over to Africa because we want to help students see the connections between Africa and the United States and the influence that Africa has had on the culture over here. We'll also be teaching math, science, reading, all sorts of things. So the same kinds of things we learn in the classroom, now I'll be teaching them from over in Africa.
If I was Miss Mally and I was going to Africa, I would feel nervous and scared, and I feel happy too, because I'll be missing my family and stuff, and then I'll be getting seasick.
Cousin and I built a ship to represent the ship that Miss Maya is on. It's called the Sortilege. The ship also represents the tracing of our slave ancestors on the CANTV, also known as the Middle Passage Voyage. We built the ship out of popsicle sticks, fabric, and wood blocks.
Stay healthy. Stay on board. Pointed or something. That's because that's the angle of geo that the boat's doing right now.
Hello, my name is Christopher Clark, and I'm in the Science and Museum of Science and Industry. And we are here because, to see the Middle Passage Voyage that Captain Pygmy is going on, and so is our the science teacher and the other teachers. We was watching a movie about Captain Pygmy's life and what voyages he went on. The event of the slave era did not diminish African sailing powers. Indeed, blackjacks, seamen from African descendants, both free and enslaved, captain ships in water all over the world.
I'm writing facts about what I didn't know that happened to William Pygmy.
Mr. Bill Pygmy set up the Middle Passage Voyage to retrace our ancestor. It was his lifelong dream to do this. He also loved to sail across the world. He wanted to retrace the influence of our African culture of the Americans.
Me and my classmates had to do a timeline. The timeline represents my life. I did research on my family's past. I found out that I'm half Indian on my mother's side. They are from all over the U.S. This shows about my African history. This I drew the little dots to show that they came from Africa all the way to America. And I wrote a poem to show all the hardships they went through. My ancestors sailed across the roaring sea to live a better life. I'm thankful for my ancestors because they gave me such good grandparents. I'm thankful for my ancestors because they gave me such good parents. I'm thankful for my ancestors because they made me become alive. Now because of my ancestors, I can live a good long life.
This is the way I started my timeline off. I started it off when I was a little baby. Then I went to kindergarten and to first grade. The project was fun and interesting, and I also left space for the future, what I want to do and who I want to be.
How did it feel to be on the Middle Passage voyage?
It was wonderful on the Middle Passage voyage. I feel so honored to have been a part of it. It was wonderful visiting Ghana, Africa. I had an opportunity to visit both the slave castles, the schools, and meet lots of wonderful people there.
What was it like to visit the schools in Ghana and Senegal?
Well, visiting the schools in Ghana and Senegal really made me appreciate it here. I've often thought I don't have enough of the things I need to teach, but after visiting the schools in Ghana and talking to the teachers, I think, boy, do we have it good over here.
Before Miss Malley left, we wrote messages to our ancestors on shells so Miss Malley could toss them over to sea. Did you feel like you reached out to our ancestors?
Yeah, I was waiting for the right moment to the day that I felt would best be the day to toss your shells. And we had this one day that was so absolutely perfect. It started early in the morning. I had woken up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and all the clouds had cleared up, and it was just a beautiful starlit sky. And then under the starlit sky there were dolphins, and I got to see the dolphins in the dark, and I heard them more than I saw them. And for the remainder of the day, the dolphins were just circling around the boat, and it was just a perfect day. And at sunset of that day, I just thought, this is the day I need to toss these shells. This is the day that, this just feels like the day I'm meant to throw them into the sea.
How did the slave castle look, and how did it feel to visit it?
Well, it was one of the more difficult things. It was both, it was really a moving experience, having never been on African soil before and having really spent some time reading and studying about the slave trade and really hearing about the horrors of it, and then visiting the places, the castles that the Europeans had built and where they housed them, and walking into the cells where they had kept slaves. I found it was one of those times when you really felt connected with the past, and it made you think about our history together. I felt very grateful to have been there with Anthony. And I know that the experience for him was one of connecting with his ancestors. And for me, it was one of looking at my past and seeing that as a European, this past and our relationship to Africa is one that we really don't acknowledge. And the being there together and working together on this really made me feel that we're ready to move into a future together.
This is the way I picture Miss Malley when she was in Africa. Miss Malley is throwing our shells into the ocean. We had written to our ancestors on the shells. Writing to my ancestors made me feel proud because they did very important things for us. I'm glad Miss Malley went and was able to throw the shells in the water for us. I hope to go to Africa so I can connect with my ancestors.
Ready.